exhibit is on display at Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes. It's called On the Edge, Intersections and Interactions. It celebrates the uniqueness of the Point Reyes National Seashore. And as reporter Bettina Camriani found out, it's turning some unexpected cast-offs into some items of beauty.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. Two artists, Richard Lang and Judith Selby, set out to a Marin County beach, focusing in on stuff most of us might ignore. They collected plastic trinkets that washed up from the ocean, transforming them into playful works of art.
Started out as a cleanup effort. Started out with that aesthetic feeling to make something look right. Wanted to make the beach look right, and then it became a treasure hunt.
Their haul, 75 pounds of plastic for each visit to the beach.
Combs, toothbrushes, tampon inserters, all of the things you find back there. Those black things are spacers for oyster beds. I mean, that's really surprising. I think the amount is what's most surprising.
But it's what they did with it all that sets this art exhibit apart.
Well, this one I call the Spiral Nebula, and it is composed of shotgun waddings, which was something I didn't even know existed until I started seeing these little kind of floret shapes on the beach, and it was very mysterious to me because they came in a variety of colors. They're pale green and lavender and opaque white, and I thought, what are these things? And there were an abundance of these shapes, and they were quite beautiful.
Floating rope and tennis balls. It's not just junk. These artists are giving this colored plastic a second life in a most unexpected way.
These tall pieces are we call them beach banten, B-A-N-T-E-N. Banten is an Indonesian term from Bali. Both Richard and I had been to Bali, and we saw the women carrying these enormous stacks of fruit and rice cakes on their heads, kind of like a Carmen Miranda hat. And they would take these pyramidal forms to the temple for an offering, and it was a way of their celebrating and hoping for an abundance in their lives. So too, we were so inspired by these shapes that we thought, this will be a formal construct for our own celebration and our own appreciation for the beach, in the spirit that we wanted to clean up the beach and actually give something back to this very special place.
Tiny toys and wall sculptures sit right alongside a collection of hair barrettes that the artists say each have a story of not only the little girl who wore them, but how they came to wash up on the beach. But really, where did this stuff come from?
I have no idea. I mean, really, some people have told us it's coming down the Russian River. A lot of it comes from fishermen and from boating. I have no idea where all of those Tipperello tips come from, but there are over 400 of them. I don't know anyone that smokes Tipperellos. But I think fishermen smoke them a lot.
They say each work of art represents a collaboration, a back and forth, and in it all is a message about disposable items that we use once and casually toss away. This hanging checkerboard is just one example of what two artists found at one beach in 1 year. The red squares are actually those little plastic spreaders from those cheese and cracker packets that so many kids have in their school lunches. 140 of them ended up on this piece of art, but no doubt many more washed up at the Point Reyes National Seashore.
All of the plastic that's arrived on the shore is light enough to be carried and floated onto the shore, but what is under? What is underneath? And I wonder about the impact of all of this on our fish, on the ocean creatures. Are they swimming through all of this stuff? Are they having to navigate through the shards and the fragments? And are they consuming it? I mean, that's a whole other issue.
But there's another message.
I think one is anything can be beautiful. Just turn your attention toward it, and with that kind of an impartial eye to the world, and you can make anything beautiful. And that maybe there's free art supplies out there. Anyone can pick them up.
To me, this is a really exuberant exhibit. I'm happy to show and share the result of our efforts. I want people to go away with a really positive feeling. I want them to say, oh, this is so beautiful. Let's go right now to the beach and let's go get us some plastic so that we can make art too.
Their work is on display at Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes. It's part of a larger exhibit called On the Edge, Intersections and Interactions, a celebration of the seashore. Z. Morvitz created a book of signs at the park that she says shows the tension between having a park that everyone can enjoy and the rules to keep it pristine and unspoiled.
I thought, well, what if the parks didn't have any rules and we didn't have to face these prohibitions every time we got on the trail? And then I thought, well, there'd be a lot more garbage, and there would be probably four-wheel drive vehicles and dirt bikes and jet skis and, you know, everything else. So I saw that we and the parks were together in a partnership because if they didn't remind us not to do some things, the land would be probably trashed.
But what would Z say to someone who takes all those signs for granted?
Good. They've become invisible. To me, I see them every time I go to the trailhead. I see those signs and I feel somebody's, you know, shaking their finger at me and saying, don't light a fire, you know, don't walk off the trail. But if you've grown up with them and you ignore them, you don't see them, well, good for you.
Artist Mary Eubank celebrates the seashore by creating plaster books with sand and dried kelp. She says the writing is meant to capture the calligraphy you see at the beach, like the imprint of windswept bird tracks in the sand.
It's a poetic message. And like poetry, people have got to get out of it what they get out of it. They have to read it and say, well, yes, I understand about the salt water and all of that. And the beach, for me, is also like a table that has been set because there are all these wonderful elements, objects on the beach. I go out to the beach and in order to find things that I can use in my work.
And in a smaller gallery, ecological artist Dan McCormick blends art and science. His exhibit shows of teaching school children to use willows to weave natural sculptures. When they're placed in stream banks or gullies, they help preserve the spawning coho and steelhead salmon.
When they're strategically placed, they are filled with material from the corridor, and water hits them and slows them down. It acts as what's called a energy dissipator. So there's less silt going into the spawning grounds, which cover up where the salmon lay their eggs.
Appreciating the seashore is just one part of the exhibit. For these artists, making the beach better than when they found it is the other. In Point Reyes, Bettina Camriani for the Marin Report.
The exhibit at Gallery Route 1 runs through May 6th, and it's just one of several events over the next 2 months that's celebrating the environment and the seashore. Local artists will be conducting workshops for school children. There'll be poetry readings and a nature walk and panel discussions. If you'd like more information, you can reach them in the 415 at 663-1347.